Hey, welcome in, folks. Great to see you on this Friday. Got a major update for you on what is shaping up to be a very rare winter storm in the deep south, potentially as far south as the Gulf Coast, maybe even as far south as places like Savannah, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, all in the running for a potential winter storm by the time we get into early next week. Now, I'm going to break all of that down for you in today's video, but if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte, and if you haven't already, go ahead, like the video, subscribe, and hit that bell for the latest notifications. That'll make sure you're up to date with all of the latest model guidance and a breakdown of that guidance throughout the next couple of days as we continue to track this storm and any future storms on down the road. Also, go ahead, comment, let me know where you're watching from and what you think will happen with this storm system. Alrighty, folks, with that said, let's dive right on into the data and start getting you up to date. Now, what you see looping next to me, this is the latest run, hot off the press of our European computer model, and you can see that potential for winter weather, not even just in the deep south, another storm system we're watching in the northeast. That could produce some winter weather along the I-95 corridor from Philadelphia up through Boston. We'll talk about that as well in today's video. So just a general idea there. Obviously, just one model run, not an exact forecast, but I think showing that potential pretty well here on the latest European. Now, something else that is showing the potential very well, and this is straight from the experts, folks. This is from the Weather Prediction Center. This is their forecast for Tuesday afternoon of this week, going with a feisty winter storm. And you can see that snow and ice as far south as New Orleans, Houston, the Florida Panhandle getting in on winter weather, Mobile, Pascagoula, even all the way up into Savannah, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, and Wilmington. Even the Outer Banks seeing some blue on the map here. So obviously, when the Weather Prediction Center gives you a map like this and you're only about 4 days away, I should tell you something, folks. We're gaining confidence in this event happening. Now the questions are really just the details we need to iron out. How much of what type of precipitation and where will it fall? Those are the three big questions that we'll try to answer over the coming days. And I think I can give you a general idea in today's video of who will likely see the highest chance of that snow and ice. Now, before we get to anything falling from the sky, we need cold air first. So let's go ahead and talk about that latest satellite loop showing that cold air moving south quickly. And you might be wondering, Gerald, well, where is this cold air that you speak of? Well, the devil's in the details here, if you will. This is our water vapor loop in the upper levels of the atmosphere. And this kind of shows us where we're getting moisture transported. And you're thinking, all right, well, you just said we don't care about moisture, we care about cold air. Yes, but the jet stream that is transporting this moisture is only there because of that clash between cold and warm. So you see this area that's kind of moving south. You see a little bit of enhanced precipitation up here into south central Canada, just north of Minnesota and Wisconsin there. Well, this is a push of very cold Arctic air that is moving southward and picking up some of that moisture with it as it moves in that direction. So the cold air is on the way. That will be here by later this weekend and especially by Monday into much of the lower 48. So we're going to have a fresh supply of cold Arctic air. Then the question becomes, do we have any energy to kind of overlap with that Arctic air? And I can tell you, just looking at the map here, it's kind of hard to see, and I'm kind of blocking it a little bit here, but all the way on the left-hand side of your screen, you see this little piece of energy. Well, this piece of energy is going to move towards California. That combined with the energy from our jet stream in general are likely going to link up, or at least one be strong enough that we get some sort of winter weather in the deep south by next week. Now, one of the big questions still is, how do they link up? Do they link up at all? That'll play a big role in how much snow and ice falls. But either way, I think something frozen will fall somewhere that really just is not used to it. And that'll be a big story as we go through next week. All right, so let's time out that cold air for you. Our usual 500 millibar height anomaly map, a map I love to use on the channel. If you're a regular, you'll know that more than anybody else. And here comes the blue. Now, this afternoon, we have a little bit of ridging in the east. I did want to mention that. You see this little pocket of orange. These are warmer temperatures that have surged north over the past day or so. You probably felt it yesterday. I know here in Charlotte, it was much nicer yesterday than it had been earlier this week. Today will be the same. So please go outside, take a walk, get some fresh air, because it will not last last for long, as by the time we get to this weekend, notice this big blue blob working into the lower 48. And folks, by the time we get to Sunday afternoon here, it's game on. That cold air is locked into place from sea to shining sea, quite literally almost from California all the way into the Carolinas and Maine, seeing that very cold air settle in place. And it's all of that energy and all of that cold that will potentially produce this winter weather as we go a little bit further ahead into time. Now, again, before we get to the snow and stuff, let's talk about how cold is cold. And in fact, I saw somebody post this on X the other day. By the way, if you don't follow me on X, go ahead and do so. The link is in the description. I post all the time on there with new model guidance and kind of my thoughts on things that you might not see on the YouTube page. So definitely follow me on X, where I will keep you up to date as well. But back to this forecast. The temperature anomaly map, and somebody posted, as I was going to say, that they've seen all these anomaly maps, but they haven't seen the actual temperatures. And what good is an anomaly map without the temperatures? And that's a great point. And I will show you actual forecasted temperatures in just a second. But before we do, I do think the anomaly map is helpful for situations like this. So here we go. This is this afternoon. You're seeing plenty of orange and red on the map. Those are those warmer temperatures. Again, that little bit of ridging bringing a warmer air mass in place today. But as I mentioned earlier, do not get used to it. Here's tomorrow morning. We're waking up and you can see this stout boundary setting up shop as that cold air begins to push south and east throughout the weekend. Again, through Saturday afternoon pictured below. And you know what? I'll just loop it ahead and we can watch it. This gets us into Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, into Monday morning, Monday afternoon, and into Tuesday morning. I'll stop it right here on Tuesday morning. Folks, this is as cold gets. You can see all of that widespread blue locking into place, and that is, again, what could support winter weather well far south. When you're running 20 degrees below average in Houston, and you get precipitation on top of that, and we're in the heart of January, yeah, that's going to give the potential for a rare winter weather setup. And how cold is cold? Again, kind of a good question to ask here. Well, these are high temperatures on Monday afternoon that are expected. Folks, we're going to struggle to crack freezing in cities deep south. We're talking Birmingham, Atlanta, Charlotte, Raleigh, Little Rock, and even potentially down into Texarkana, struggling to get above 32 degrees. Meanwhile, we're going to struggle to hit 0 degrees Fahrenheit up into the northern plains, the Dakotas, Minnesota, portions of Wisconsin. We might not get the thermometer back above zero until later next week after this air mass moves in, and then highs only in the single digits and teens into the Ohio River Valley, into portions even of the Northeast, seeing highs there only cracking about 15 or 20, and then highs around 20, 25 along the, well, that's the year, that's funny, sorry, along the I-95 corridor. So you get the point, a very cold air mass. This is Monday afternoon. Monday night, waking up Tuesday, that freezing line, just about the entire state of Texas likely to be below freezing by Tuesday morning. Same story for the Florida Panhandle into New Orleans, getting down into the 20s, Pascagoula, Mobile, all the major cities in the south, and that 0 degree line potentially moving as far south as St. Louis into Cincinnati, Louisville getting close to zero, and then much of the interior Northeast also below that 0 degree line. And heck, check up at Minnesota and North Dakota. Some people might get colder than negative 20 Fahrenheit by the time we're waking up Tuesday morning. So the cold will be there. That will not be a problem at all. In fact, I can guarantee you it will be quite cold. Now, let's talk precipitation. I'm going to change the map here real quick and zoom it in a little bit for you. Now, as this air mass is moving in, we are going to run the threat for a little wintry event, maybe even a moderate winter weather event into portions of the east before we ever even get to next week. So here we go. Let's time it out for you. This is this afternoon. Things remain pretty quiet, but as we go into tomorrow, and here we go, tomorrow morning, Saturday, you'll notice as that cold air is pushing in, we're getting enough lift for some winter weather to begin, and just some good old-fashioned rain as well. I think some snow possible in Indiana, Ohio, Michigan. Not a big hitting event, maybe even some snow in the mountains of North Carolina up through the Virginias, but all rain for major cities like Nashville, Knoxville, into Atlanta, Charlotte, Raleigh, and then even probably up through much of Kentucky as well, seeing all rain out of this. Now, this could produce some interior Northeast snow Saturday afternoon and evening. Again, not a big deal, but here's where things get interesting. Let me pause the map right here. This is Sunday afternoon. At this point, the cold air has basically worked in for just about everyone outside of maybe the extreme southeastern coastline. And what's going to happen is we're going to get a little piece of energy to form along what we call a baroclinic zone along the southeast coastline. Basically, this is just an area low pressure likes to form. The atmosphere makes it easier for it to form here, and that's what's going to happen. Now, that is going to create enough lift and tap into enough Atlantic moisture here that it's going to throw back some of that moisture into this pocket of cold air. I think Sunday afternoon, we're going to run the chance for some snow into portions of eastern Tennessee, Kentucky, the Virginias, even potentially in North Carolina. I think definitely the mountains, but places like Greensboro, Charlotte, Raleigh, don't rule out a couple flakes Sunday evening. And then this storm tries to crank up and move up the coast. This is overnight Sunday into Monday. A nice little winter weather event here from DC up through Philly, New York City, up into the Boston area, all of Long Island, seeing some of that snow here overnight Sunday into Monday. And you can see it cranking up pretty good. Now, let me show you another model here, because this is an event that we haven't talked a lot about. I have mentioned it, I think, every day for at least the past couple, but let me give you another possibility. This is the GFS model. The GFS, even a little more excited about this. Check this out. Around a 996 millibar low, classic nor'easter. Now, not as strong as some of the blockbuster nor'easters we've seen before, but that's a pretty good low pressure with a nice shield of snow into the northeast along I-95. Here overnight Sunday, or even really starting Sunday afternoon and evening. Will be interesting. The Eagles game in Philadelphia could be a snow game on Sunday. We'll see. And then this kind of pulls up the coast and should be out of our hair by Monday morning. Now, I think we're close enough now. I can kind of tease totals at least a little bit here. I'm not going to give you exact totals on how much is going to fall, but this is our blend of models. This is the mean on kind of what they're coming up with out of this storm. And folks, it's pretty good little totals here. We're talking a couple inches in DC, Philadelphia ringing in at 3 or 4 inches, New York City looking at about a 4 to 5 inch event on the mean. Now, this could go up, this could go down. I will remind you of that. But this is kind of where we're starting at. This is our starting point on projected totals in this area. And then up into Boston, nice little totals around 5 or 6 inches even. So definitely, you get past 3 inches, considering how lackluster the past couple winters have been. This would be a nice little snow drought relief for some folks in the area. From, again, Philadelphia to Boston specifically, but I think even down into DC. And I would not rule out areas down into even southern Virginia, maybe as far south as Greensboro. Raleigh could pick up on some flakes. Might not accumulate as well down here, but would not be surprised to see some flakes fly Sunday afternoon. So this will be a story in its own right that we'll definitely keep on talking about up until it happens. All right, now let's get into the fun stuff. This is that southern snow potential that you probably tuned into the video for. And what you're looking at right now, I know it's a big, complicated looking map, but I'll try to break it down for you. And trust me, it's even complicated for me sometimes. This is our 500 millibar height relative vorticity map. And you're probably wondering, Gerald, you said we're about to talk about southern snow. Why do I care? Well, my number one fundamental rule of meteorology is it's got to fit synoptically for it to happen at the surface. So if we're going to get snow in the south, is the setup in the big scale even support that? And the answer, short, is yes. In fact, it's gotten a little bit better overnight in the models. If you remember yesterday, if you tuned in or you saw my post on X, I talked about this piece of energy back out west into Nevada, Utah, and Arizona. And I'll circle it again in a darker color so you can see it maybe a little bit better. Now, the key to this forecast is going to be that piece of energy as well as this little piece of energy that you see kind of just off the coast of California. I'll put X's over both of them and keep them there on the map. Now, for a big winter storm, we're going to have two possibilities, two different ways we can do it here on the models. We can completely forget about this piece of energy and it just not matter. That's good. That means, it's one piece that we don't even need for the winter weather. However, if that happens, we need this piece of energy over Nevada and Utah to get stronger, kick out even further west, and ramp up quicker as it's moving south and east and become negatively tilted. I use that term all the time. Basically, that's just a strong trough. Whenever I say negatively tilted, that means it's ready, it's good to go, it wants to produce a big storm. That's option number one. Option number two is this piece of energy over the Pacific kicks in a little bit quicker and gets scooped up by this trough, and then they kind of combine and make a bigger storm. That is another option. Another option is this piece of energy out over Nevada, Utah is even stronger, and this piece of energy over the Pacific is even quicker, and they both combine, and we get an even bigger storm. So we've got plenty of options here on the table. This is the GFS model. I'll show you the Canadian model here, shows the same thing, but notice something. it's a little bit stronger than the GFS with this western piece, or I guess the eastern piece of energy comparative to both of them. So that's the GFS, that's the Canadian, that's the European. The European's even stronger than the Canadian on that piece of energy. The icon even stronger than all of those. So that's going to be very important, is how strong does that trough get out west, and how quick does this little piece of energy get out ahead of the trough, or does it stay behind the trough and not get picked up at all? That's what we need to find out. Now, I'm going to show you the Canadian model from this afternoon, or from yesterday evening, my bad, or I guess last night rather. I promise I'll get the date right here. And let me show you this one, because the Canadian has been all over this being a big time storm, and let me show you why in the upper levels it has a big storm and some of the other models have maybe a smaller storm. Now, just about all the models show something right now. I'll go ahead and start with that. So I don't think it's a matter of if this will happen. I think it's a bigger question of how big will the storm be. Is it going to be a record breaker, or is it just going to be more of a cool kind of novelty deep south winter weather event? Well, here's the Canadian. Again, watch these two pieces of energy out west. So the Canadian takes route number 1 that we talked about, or I guess really kind of the middle route. This piece of energy does not pick up our Pacific energy, so it doesn't have that little extra boost, but what it does do is really amplifies this piece of energy, gets it strong, digs it south, and what happens is that oh so important negative tilt begins. Now this is a positive tilt. This tells me the storm's still cranking up. Then it gets to a neutral tilt over about Tennessee, Alabama. That tells me it's go time. It's about to get big. And then it becomes negatively tilted over the Carolinas. So that would produce a big winter storm. And I'll show you the Canadian run in a moment, so don't worry, we're going to get there. Let me show you a different model though. What about the icon? The icon, a little bit of a different scenario. Again, all the same players on the field. The only difference is how they kind of move together. Now, the icon does pick up that Pacific energy, kind of moves it into the trough. But what it doesn't do, like the Canadian, is kind of move that piece of energy to a negative tilt. You see how it kind of stays strung out? Sorry, kind of had to think about how to say that. Strung out here over the deep south, and specifically over kind of the desert southwest. Well, because of that, the storm doesn't get nearly as strong, and it's kind of a weaker storm system. So basically, the point I'm trying to make here is what's happening in the upper levels above our head is so important to what's going to happen at the surface by the time we get to Tuesday. And you can see that in the actual models themselves. So those are a couple different solutions, and you can see how that has big ramifications on the forecast. So let me show you the GFS operational run from this morning. Again, brand new. All right, here we go. Time above my head, that's in Eastern Standard Time, so feel free to look at that. I'll try to verbalize it for you as well. This is overnight Monday snow beginning to break out in East Texas over portions of Louisiana, and it's a nice little storm, even getting into Mississippi, Alabama seeing some winter weather by the time we're waking up Tuesday morning. Even places, check this out, as far south as New Orleans seeing snow. Mobile, Alabama, even into the Destin area of Florida getting close to snow, maybe a little north of there off the beaches getting it. And it's an interesting deep south winter storm. Even the upstate of South Carolina getting in on some light snow, and then the storm cranks up. And I'll tell you, this is closer to the Canadian and what the Canadian's been showing, the GFS here from this morning, and it becomes a major winter storm for South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia. Tries to scoot up the coast, get some snow into the Delmarva, down into even portions of New Jersey, and then kind of scoots on out to sea. That's the GFS. Now, let's look at the European model. What does it show? Well, it kind of starts the same here. We get some snow to break out across Texas and Louisiana. This is Tuesday morning, so maybe a little bit later than the GFS. And then it kind of rides through the deep south. We get snow in southern Mississippi, Alabama, the Florida Panhandle, deep south into Georgia, and then light snow into the Carolina coastline, and then it kind of fizzles out. So what's the difference between those two? Well, it's kind of the difference between the Canadian and the icon I showed you. The Canadian, much more like the GFS, really ramped the storm up. We had a huge storm due to that upper level support. The icon, less supportive in the upper levels, and it looks more like the European here, where it's still a winter weather event. Either way, it's just different on who gets it and how severe it is. This would be into overnight Tuesday. It's really just a quick hitting one-day storm, and then is out of here by Wednesday on this model. Now, let me show you the Canadian itself. I showed you the Holy Grail upper level map. Let me show you the Holy Grail surface map and what it shows with this storm system. All right, so go ahead, buckle up, prepare yourself, and I'll start by saying this is not a forecast. We're just analyzing models, but this is a good high-end scenario. So if you're wondering about what's the best that this storm could be, probably something like this. So here we go. Tuesday morning, that trough already more amplified. Thus, we're seeing more snow over Texas, Louisiana, into Arkansas even. And check this out. This is Tuesday afternoon, heavy all-out snowstorm along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana into Houston, down through Mississippi, Alabama, and folks, this storm ramps up. This is Tuesday evening. The entire state of Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, seeing big snow or ice beginning to fall, and then this cranks up the East Coast, and it's a borderline blizzard into the low country of South Carolina, into the sandhills of North Carolina, back into Wilmington, Jacksonville, North Carolina. We've got an ice storm in the Florida Panhandle. We've got snow as far north as the upstate of South Carolina through the Western Carolinas in general. Charlotte getting a good snow, and then this moves up the East Coast a little bit, and we get a winter storm all the way up the I-95. That's the ceiling with this storm. That's about as good as it could possibly get. Now, what are the odds of that happening? Not super high, but I'd honestly give it about a good 20% chance. And I know that's not a big percentage. If somebody tells you there's a 20% chance of rain, you're thinking, all right, it's probably not going to rain today. Same thing here. That's probably not going to happen, but it is still a card that is in the deck. We've yet to pull that card out of the deck, and we'll continue to watch that scenario. Now, let's look at the ensembles. This is the stuff that, always the bread and butter of forecasting. If you're new to the channel, you'll learn this pretty quick. If you're a returning viewer, I love some ensembles. And I think any forecaster that is doing it responsibly probably should love the ensembles too. All right, so the chance of at least an inch of snow falling. Well, what about the European ensembles? What does it say? Well, it loves Texas and Louisiana. It's got, 70% chance of accumulating snow down through southern Louisiana and Texas along the I-10 corridor, folks. I mean, that is deep south snow. That is not stuff you see very often. We were just tracking tornadoes there a couple weeks ago. Now we're tracking a big winter storm. It's just crazy how the weather works sometimes. But you see that. And then you see the chances also pretty good into the Carolinas, specifically along the coast from the Outer Banks down to Myrtle Beach, Horry County, Georgetown County, even into Charleston, Savannah, down towards Beaufort, having a pretty good shot at snow out of this. And then down towards Macon, Warner Robins, Montgomery, Talladega, into southern Mississippi, and right there even along the Florida Panhandle, specifically the Western Panhandle, around Destin, Pensacola, areas like that. Now, this is one of those weird setups where places like Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg, into, we'll say, Huntsville, up into even the Triad of Greensboro, you actually have a lower chance of snow than places like Myrtle Beach, Wilmington, Fayetteville, and those kind of coastal communities. And trust me, as someone who lives in Charlotte and has yet to see a good snow here, it's almost even annoying for me to say, but obviously pulling for you folks who want big snow in the south, and obviously hoping that it's not a storm too big that we can't handle, but this is a strong signal for snow, folks. All right, GFS, and what does its ensemble say? Well, about the exact same thing. I could go into all the nitty gritty, but it's really similar. The same highlighted areas. Down here into Texas and Louisiana, we have one highlight, specifically kind of between Houston and New Orleans along the I-10 corridor, and then another highlight, move it ahead a little bit, into the coastal area of the Carolinas, from the Outer Banks of North Carolina all the way down into about Charleston and Savannah. Those are the two highest places in the ensemble means right now. So if you're in one of those areas, I feel pretty confident you're going to get some snow. Now, how much snow? Does it maybe change to ice? Things like that. That's what we need to find out. But I'm feeling confident those areas are going to see some sort of winter weather event. Now, let me circle a bigger area. If you're into this area, right into here, you're not out of it by any means. I'm still watching you for the potential of snow. I think there's just more questions than answers inside the pink circle right now, while we have higher confidence in those two black circles I have outlined for you. Now, final map, I'll show you the Canadian ensembles. Remember the big operational one? That was the crazy one. Well, what do its ensembles say? Well, its ensembles agree wholeheartedly. It says we're getting a major winter storm through the entire Deep South, not just those two pockets I showed you from Texas all the way up through the Carolinas. Again, this corridor running about a 90% chance of at least an inch of snow falling into Louisiana, Mississippi, up into Alabama, and then even into central South Carolina and the eastern Carolinas as a whole, very likely to see big snow. And you know what? I'll actually show you one more thing just because I'm interested myself. What are the chances we get 4 inches of snow out of this event on the Canadian ensembles? And again, remember, this is the bullish one, so this is a best case scenario. It's running a pretty good chance here through Louisiana and Texas, about a 50-50 shot of a major winter storm with more than 4 inches of snow. And same story down here into South Carolina and eastern North Carolina, about a 50 to 60% chance of a big winter storm of at least 4 inches of snow here coming up by early next week. Alrighty, folks, what a gauntlet. A couple things I'll add here. I will have a video out this afternoon. I'll probably go live, if not tonight, definitely tomorrow night, and hopefully Sunday night and Monday night. Luckily, a little bit of a break from school with the weekend, and couldn't come at a better time. So I'm going to try to hit the ground running here. Again, apologize, no video last night. Tuesdays and Thursdays are just crazy on my school schedule. So it makes it a little difficult to get 2 videos out a day. But with that said, y'all have a great one. Stay safe. Come back for more updates. I'll see you all next time.